The following presentation is a gift from the team at Streamline Publishing, publishers of Fine Art Connoisseur, Plein Air Magazine, and weekly newsletters Fine Art Today, Realism Today, Plein Air Today, and American Watercolor, and events, the Plein Air Convention and the Figurative Art Convention. We offer over 400 different art instruction tutorials and ultra high-quality video by the world's leading artists. If you like what you see, help us support our artists and our team with your purchase. Each video aired has a special discount code for today only in the comments section with a link to the video offered. And to see everything we do, or if you want to receive notice of new releases, new products, and new events for artists, simply click the other link, which says, "See everything we do." Thank you.
Hi, I'm Eric Rhodes, publisher of Plein Air and Fine Art Connoisseur magazines. Today's video, Bold Brushwork with Kathie Odom.
Hi everybody, I'm Kathie Odom and I'm so glad that you've joined me in this instructional video. Just to give you a little bit of who I am, I was raised in West Tennessee in Jackson, went to the University of Tennessee where I was an art major, took everything but painting. I started my painting career 10 years ago. I'm a late bloomer when it comes to this, but I have worked really hard at it. I love it, and I can't wait to share with you how I've painted this painting. Now that you know me a little bit, and I've introduced myself, now I'm going to dive into what's really important to me as I am in the middle of a painting and starting a painting. I have all my materials where I know where they are. And this keeps my mind and my emotions into the painting that I am and the subject that I'm about to paint. So this is more than ample here. Normally I am a plein air painter and spend a lot of time outside. I have a little camping table that I use. And but here we've got this gorgeous big table, and so everything fits and I'm ready to show you what's going on. The pochette box is the first thing I set up. I get it set up to where I can see my scene and know that I am in a good place to capture, that I don't have to worry about looking around things, or it's in a good place. More importantly, I get it set up to where I feel good physically. My posture is good, and I can feel good about where I'm standing, how I'm holding the brush, and that's real important to me. Also, my palette knife is in place. This box is a alla prima pochette box, and it has magnets. It works on magnets, and it's awesome. And so anything metal I can have in a place and it stays there, and that is really good for me. Now, the fact that it will stay there the whole time is probably not the truth, but because we all get wrapped up in what we're doing, but I start with it where I can find it. My brushes that I normally start my wash with are actually standing up over here in the panel and are in place for me to get started. The paints, I've loaded my box before I get started with ample amount of paint. I don't really want to be searching for the tubes or the color in the middle of my painting. So they are pretty much organized in this plastic container. In a situation in the studio like I am today, I even have them in order. At home in my studio, I have drawers of paint, and they are in order, so I can find them in a hurry. But my goal is to fill up my box with ample amount of paints. I'm sure that we have all heard that in all the workshops that we take. It is very important to me. I don't worry about the cost. I don't worry about whether I've put up too much. It's going to help me create a painting, and that's worth a lot to me. So the palette is full. I have my paper towels, my Viva paper towels on either side on these wings, because that helps me control the viscosity of the paint on the brush. If I need to wipe the brush or get it a little drier, that's there in place. This brass container here is a brush holder that connects to my box, and I put my dirty filled brushes that are dirty as I'm painting into that box, just to keep my space a little cleaner and neater. Then also I have my mineral spirits can here, and it's connected by this little ring that connects to my box, and the ring is called a wine glass holder. I have never used it as a wine glass holder, but it fits perfectly on the brush cleaner, and so it's attached to my box and stays pretty stable. So I'm very comfortable with that. I hope you can find those. I don't even remember where I had purchased one, but it's been a great tool for me. My scraper is here on the box, and it is there to help me clean my glass as I'm painting. When I need a clean spot, I like freshness in my paintings, and so there are times that I need that dirty mud pile to mix in, but there are times that I need clean, and so I will use the scraper and get a spot clean for me. So that stays right there where I can grab it. Also, my cane is here, and that helps in keeping my hands steady when I'm doing detailed work, and it hangs right there. I think this is a stolen idea from Richard Smith, who I have studied and enjoyed, and the fact that it will hook on my canvas and steady my hand, I think is brilliant. So wonderful tool in painting. And when I'm traveling, I have a back scratcher. When I'm flying and can't take the cane along, the back scratcher works just as well, and is a fun tool to have. It fits in everything. Also here on the table, the setup, the first thing I'd show you is my cards, which are reference cards. They're on index cards, and I will be talking more about these later. They help me keep on track. It's words or small phrases that keep me into what I'm doing, are great reminders of where I need to go with my painting, what's next. So we'll talk about that later. But they're here, they're part of my materials, they're in my box. Also, my brushes, which I have a sufficient amount here, are here, and they are pretty much organized with the softer brushes together and the bristle brushes. Also, I have pulled out blender brushes, and my favorite brushes that I think make some of my work unique is the 279 series by Rosemary. And I draw with them with the paint, and I also lay paint on. It keeps me from getting muddy on my canvas. Also, very valuable to me is this lotion, Invisible Care. What it does is, for me, it takes the place of rubber gloves. We all have to think about safety as we're doing this thing that we love to do. This is my way, because I really paint with my fingers more than I thought I would. So the lotion is just a way for me to put some on. It prevents the paint from soaking in a lot. Your hands get cleaner a lot faster. I highly recommend it. Now, as far as other tools here on the table, believe it or not, I'll use a square every now and then, and this one has really been used. But it is there because oceans don't go uphill. They don't go downhill. They're as straight as they can be. And there's other things that I paint as far as structures, buildings, and they're built plumb. Yes, a barn can be leaning and it can be going in a totally different direction than it should be because of age, but this is a tool that can be really handy to have. It also can be a crutch. So when I talk about it, I also say when you're using it to get that line that needs to be pretty straight on your canvas, take your brush and paint it painterly. Don't just do a strong, hard line with it. Be painterly as you use it. Also, some of my canvases are a little bit large for my box, but I have found that I can put a canvas that fits on the box and then put the larger canvas on top of that and use this clamp to connect that larger canvas. So I always have this with me because as I'm out in the field, the subject matter tells me what size canvas I'm going to use. So I don't want to be limited. That clamp makes a difference. Also, Gamblin is great to give out some of their products so that we can all use them. And this little bottle going out with me when I'm plein air painting, you never know when that paintbrush cleaner is going to tip over or the wind's going to get it, and there you are stuck with no mineral spirits. So I always make sure I have one of these little containers with me in my bag, and if I use it, I go home and refill it just to make sure I've got some with me. Here you'll see makeup applicators. Yes, they're not Q-tips, they're makeup applicators. One end is flat and larger, one end is pointed, and it's really got a hard surface on it. And I use this as a drawing tool. It will lift off paint and give me some reflective things going on in trees, and you will see me use this as we paint the painting, the hilltopper that we're doing today. I also have these baby wipes with me, and they're really great because I'm a messy person and need them. Last but not least, my sketchbooks are here, and I am one that wants to get a sketch done. If I have found my subject and I'm really interested in it, if I sketch it and get it on paper, I know the lay of the land. I may not be painting land, but I know the flowers and I know where they are, or I know exactly where the objects are, and I've learned the subject before I even start painting. That's huge to me, and I think it could be great for you too. My setup is huge and being courageous as I paint. Knowing where things are, I don't have to be distracted. I can just be ready to paint. And I'm already excited. The subject's out there waiting for me and you. And if we know where things are, we can do a better job of it. Okay, let me tell you about one of my favorite tools, and that's these cards that I have just written down words and phrases on that help me get into what I'm about to do. They kind of help me focus, and they give me great recall, really, on the stages and the different things that I do while I'm painting. Okay, at the top of the card I've written sketch, which is huge to me, to get that subject down on paper and to draw it so I know basically the lay of the land. Even if it's not land, I know where things are. Second is composition. I'm looking for where to place the focal point on my painting and my canvas. Next, let's get some paint on the palette, and I'm going to put my wash on my canvas. There is nothing scarier than a white triangle or square in front of you. Let's get a wash on, and I want to do that first. Not that any of these things are in the right order, they're just reminders. So the next thing I have written down is, what do I see? And am I really looking at the subject and seeing that that tree, the limbs don't always go straight up in the air? Some of them are broken and go down to the ground. Am I really looking at what I'm about to paint? Hugely, we need to think about shapes here. The large shapes, are they interesting? And it's just something that I need to have in my mind as I'm about to paint. After the wash, I draw, and I draw with paint on the subject matter. And I have the word draw on the card just to also let me know that I need all of the darks in before I start adding whites. Also on the card I've written, no whites yet. This is so important to not be adding any of the white paint before I've gotten my darks in. That's how we come up with all the cloudiness in our paintings. So that one's pretty huge. Okay, the next two things I have on the card are values and squinting. If you want to see the value of what's out in front of you, the dark and the light, squint. Take your eyesight out of, blur your eyesight, squint, and those values will become so clear to you. And it'll be a great, that's just a great tool. Already, I'm thinking about color mixtures as I'm looking at the scene. I'm just getting ready to paint, but I'm looking for the right colors or thinking about the mixtures that will make that color as I look at the scene and the subject matter. I don't want mud, but yet I'm also thinking, can I add or mix a color with the mud that will be a more beautiful, pleasing color? So that's next on the card. Okay, the next word is not a word, it's a phrase, share the love. And this is probably something that just came to me one day, is as I'm adding a color to the painting, and it's a great color, I look at the scene and see, is there another place that that color would be good? So I share the love. The color is the love. One thing that I'll have on my mind as I'm painting is the temperature of colors. Are they cool or are they warm? It's just a great thing to read this before I start painting and remember all of these different elements. On the back of this card, the first word is texture, and I'm always looking for texture in my paints and different ways of doing it, but texture is a big part of my paintings. Next on my card, I have the word scrape. Scraping is one of the greatest tools I've learned in painting. How the palette knife or a credit card or a tool that can actually scrape the surface can make something go from really hokey looking to really natural and nice. So that's one of my favorite terms and things to remember to do. Pops of color is another thing that I've written down here, another phrase. It is something that I'm looking for actually for the end of the painting that'll bring interest. But all along, and even at the very beginning of a painting, I'm looking, where can those pops of color be that'll draw the eye into the focal point? Huge on this card, and I even wrote it in caps, is the word resist. I think sometimes we find a favorite color, or we are really into one of the objects in the painting and we spend way too much time there, or we use too much of that beautiful color, where we need to resist and remember that it needs to be special sometimes, or we need quiet spaces in our painting. One strange word that's on my card, or it could be strange to you or different, is the word peel. And I had a light bulb moment in a workshop where the description was used. If you could peel all the darks off your canvas, they would connect to all the sides. There would be a beautiful connection with your darks. This made a huge difference in my paintings, so I want to remember the word peel. The phrase on the card, "do not chase the light," is there mainly for when I'm plein air painting, and I hope all of you are getting outside to paint. It's been one of the greatest tools in my painting career, is to be outside. But is do not chase the light. Don't start painting a subject where the light is in certain places or the shadows are certain places and then try to chase them later when it's an hour later and they're different. Make reference to where the shadows are quickly when you're drawing and getting started in your painting. When I have started a painting and the shadows are in a certain place, I make reference to those. I paint them in with my drawing brush. I get them to where they are, because they're going to change as the day and the light changes. So I need that reference, and I will oftentimes go ahead and get those shadows painted in quickly. The word atmosphere is here on my card, and atmosphere is something I'm looking for. When do the values get lighter in distant places? Where are the things up close to me darker and clearer? I'm looking for atmosphere so that I can tell that story in my painting. Another phrase I have here on the card is the sky speaking? Meaning that's a way to tell myself, is the sky so beautiful that I don't want to miss what's happening? So I'll paint the sky first, because it is going to change. It's going to be different. And real important on the card, which I've written last, is focal point. And maybe that's a great place for it to be on the card, because I'm about to start drawing or sketching and then painting, and just to reassure myself of where the focal point of the painting is going to be. What is it? And usually I start to draw at that point, and then it moves out from there to supporting characters in the painting, things that I want to be a little bit more loose and painterly after the focal point has been chosen. So give these index cards a try. They have been so helpful for me. You'll get to the point where you can't even read them. They'll have so much paint on them. but take them with you. Or pin them up on your wall in your studio. It's a great reference. Now, let's get to how I choose my subject matter. And I usually say what stops me in my tracks as far as subject matter. What speaks to me? What is telling a story that I want to portray on canvas? Okay, y'all, it's the fun part now. It's the part of what are we going to paint? And for me, it's something that stops me in my tracks. It's something that appeals to me so much that I have to paint it. And there's usually story involved. It touches something in me from either past or it may be just beautiful. And I really, really want to paint it. But I'm finding myself more and more looking for a story to tell. And we're going to show a few images. First, the photograph that I took when I spotted the subject. And then I'm going to show you what the painting looks like afterwards. One of my favorite quotes is James Gurney, and this came to me through David Boyd, and I'll use it forever. But it's, well, wonder what that looks like painted. Because sometimes the subject matter may not have the kick or the pop that you want it to, or just the beauty that you want it to. But after you paint it, it could, because you're the artist and you get to express what you want to see and what you want others to see. So let's look at the first image. This image is from Cabbage Town in Atlanta, Georgia. And I was on a plein air event, and Cabbage Town is where a lot of the Germans lived when they came to Atlanta years ago, and they would say the smell of cabbage was always in the air. But the fun part about it is that some young people have gone in, some folks that love the architecture, and they have started turning these homes into really fun places to live. And that caught my eye, and just the whole story of what Cabbage Town is. But look at this place. I mean, what great subject matter and fun. And it was just so enjoyable to stand in front of this 3 to 4 hours and paint it. So we'll go to what I ended up with. And here it is. You want to talk texture. You want to talk pops of color. I love architecture. Just the story of the satellite dish with all of Christmas, and this was in the springtime, but there was a lot here that spoke to me and really captured the place where I was. This next image is a vine that grows, that's a trumpet vine, and it will stop me in my tracks every time. My husband's granddaddy took me for a walk one day when he was first meeting me, and he said, "I've got something pretty I want to show you." And he walked me down the street, and he called this vine horse rope, and it will stop me every time. And when it's a great place to paint it, I'll do that. But this was an event in Leapers Fork, which is a part of the Nashville area, south of Nashville in Tennessee. And here was this gorgeous vine. So I was able to paint there on the spot, or plein air, and did a piece that you could say is a study. And that image is next. This was my study. I found a lot of ways to be an artist with this. It let me take parts of what I was seeing and bring them all into the canvas, but I really tried to keep the composition in mind. Where would it be interesting to have the flowers? And then the colors were great to play with. The next image is of a large painting I did from the smaller one. And there was a lot more room to do more painting, of course, and to also highlight more the trellis or fence that the vines were growing on. But I had such a great time painting those leaves that bugs had had a party on, and with the holes. And this painting now resides in Memphis, Tennessee, in a collector's home. This image was part of the Olmsted Plein Air event. I painted this north of Atlanta. They give us a few days to go and paint anywhere in the state, which is awesome for an artist because we can explore places that probably speak to us more than a big city, and that's definitely true with me. And this was actually a museum depicting just a lot of the older ways of doing things. And what I saw was the water spigot, for one, there close to the middle of the photo. Also a well, where at one point they got their water from. And then up on the porch, which is a little harder to see, is an old, one of the first clothes washers, electric clothes washers. Well, all of that spelled out to me the story of water. The name of the painting is Chores, which I guess I related to for sure because of water being such a main part of a woman's life at the time that this was viable, and when this woman may have lived and where she would have lived and what she needed to do her chores. So this was a really fun image to look at. The painting is there, and to me speaks the story of just getting the water to your home at that time, and how important that was. And it was just great fun for me to be able to capture it in a painting. This image is a house in Door County, Wisconsin. And we were driving by on the country road, and hollyhocks are a favorite of mine. Also, there was a woman sitting out drinking a cup of coffee early morning. It just all of a sudden came alive to me. The house looks like it's kind of sitting up on a hill a little bit from where the road was, and gave it a great composition for me, and a challenge also with two porches. Where is my focal point going to be? A lot of good things to put into a painting here. A secondary building. And then there were red flowers in the window box. That's always an eye catcher for me. Just lots of things about this painting. I love to see an old antenna hanging off of the house, and even when it's crooked, that appeals to me. And so this one had a lot going on, and the exciting part is I'm going to get to paint that for you in this video. So we'll do that. I'm going to show you the image of the plein air piece that I did, and here it is. It became my own, and as you can tell, the connections between the house and the little secondary building with the power lines and the clothesline, and the pops of color on the flowers kind of help your eye to travel through. This was a no-brainer. This one stopped me in my tracks immediately. One of the most exciting and the fun parts of what I do is the sketch. And I would encourage all of us to do sketches before we paint. I can't give it enough value with words. What it does for me is it helps me get a lay of the land. It lets me know where things are. It lets me correct things. If the sketch shows me that it's just not quite right, then I know what to do when I'm about to paint. So I know where to make the changes. So as far as sketching and drawing, so important. Sit in front of your televisions at night with a sketchbook in your lap. Let's sketch. Let's learn how to draw. I don't really know how anybody paints without knowing how to draw. So as far as this sketch, it's not really a value study, although there are some values there. I just love to draw. So I'm going to spend time doing it anyway, but I know that it makes me a better painter. So get the sketchbooks out. Let's do it. Find out where that antenna is on the sketch, or in the scene. Find out where that good looking evergreen tree is going to land. Connect the building to the secondary building in your sketch. Have fun with it. It's not a perfect drawing. In fact, it's done really fast because I really do want to get to the painting, but I see the importance of this step. Okay, it's time to start painting, and you'll notice that the set is a little bit different. We had all of my materials out in front of me when I was talking about just having everything in its right place. But now the materials and everything I need are on my right-hand side, which is exactly where I need them. And we'll start filling the palette. I use solvent-free gel as my medium, and I will place it in two different places. One up by my whites, and then the other is down in the corner. And I like it fresh and clean, so I have two piles of that. Then I will put the equal amount of titanium white next to it, and then also up in the ditch of my palette, which I'll explain. I love to work on glass, and in the middle of trying to get the glass cut from my palette, there was a reason why they couldn't cut it the full size. There's a piece of wood that was in the way. And as I thought about it, the glass being smaller gave me this perfect area for the paints so they don't run everywhere. If you work on glass, you'll close your box up and paints could end up anywhere. But with this setup, it's great, and it actually is something that just thrills me to have a setup that I don't have to worry about. Also, here is the cad lemon. And notice how much paint I'm putting on my palette. That's cad yellow pale. I know that I'm not going to run out in the middle of my painting if I put ample amount of paint out. And I would say this is something I run into a whole lot with students, is them not putting enough paint out, worried of the expense or worried of, just having leftover paint. The value of having enough paint out where I don't have to think about reloading the palette is so valuable, and you're worth every bit of it, and the painting is too. Here I am putting in some of my reds, cad red light, and this order I keep I have kept actually for 10 years. I love color, I love paint, and I actually talked myself into not searching the row of paints in an art store because I really wanted to get to know my palette. And my mentor used this palette. I will admit I've added a few extra colors, but it has served me really well, and I know what I'm mixing. I know what to go to in my mixing. I would highly, highly recommend getting a palette and sticking with it for a while. I know that I have stuck with mine for a very long time. I think it was in college I couldn't make up my mind what art form I really wanted to be in. And so when I 10 years ago started oil painting, knowing myself, said I am going to keep things simple. I do have an extensive palette, I know that. I've got lots of colors here. But in that I'm keeping these and I know them, I felt like I wouldn't be as scattered getting to know my palette. I'm starting to put on my blues. I forgot my transparent red oxide, which is really a vital color for me. Most of my drawing uses that. Cobalt blue, a color that I know will cool things down. Ultramarine blue I use as I mix with transparent red oxide for my drawing color. And here's a little bit of indigo blue that I added to my palette later. When I want things to go really dark, indigo blue will do it. I have not added black to my palette, and I think because I like the warmness I can get from darks if it's not using the black. It's just something that I have refrained from, and it works for me. These last few colors, two of them I really just don't need that much of. They are more expensive, the Cobalt Violet. But it's just such a great paint for the pop at the end of the painting. So a little dot of that lives here, and in this painting it will definitely be used. Violet Gray by Holbein. It's the only Holbein color that I use, but it is a great paint color to have on my palette for shadows, and also just to mix in with my sky at times when the sky's a little bit more moody. And then Radiant Turquoise by Gamblin. Just a great, happy, wonderful sky color. Also can be used in different pops and other places on the painting. So that is the palette, and we're ready to get to the wash. The wash may be one of my favorite parts of painting. It's so free, and I don't have to worry about anything. If anything, it's just getting rid of this white that is so scary. So let's get rid of that. But before I start, the one thing I didn't do when showing you my palette is I didn't mix the titanium white and the solvent-free gel together. I'll mix that in a puddle. And the reason I do that is it will flow better. Also, it will add the medium to most all of the paint mixing that will occur later when I start to add color to the painting, which also gives it a vibrancy that at times as your paintings are drying, you'll notice them to get very cloudy, or what's happening is some oxidation is going on, and this solvent-free gel will keep things bright and shiny, and I think helps encourage me along the way as I paint. I know it has great benefits. Okay, let's start with the wash. I will dip my larger brush, and this brush I use is not a natural bristle. It is a manufactured bristle, and it just moves the paint like I want it to during the wash. I start with Viridian Green, and then I mix in a little bit of Yellow Ochre, and then also just a touch, the corner of my brush, with my transparent red oxide. And you'll notice I haven't really mixed this completely. I want to see all the colors present, and that to me gives a little bit more of interest. Also just need a little bit more Viridian. This makes my pochette box talk to me a little bit, because it's something that you do with a lot of energy, a lot of life, because it's so freeing to mess that white square up that I've got in front of me. Also, I'm going to add just a little bit, because of the scene I'm looking at, it had a little bit of a lavender cast in the sky and around the house. So I'm going to use a little bit of alizarin and cobalt blue and really water it down with my mineral spirits. And just add a little bit of that in, probably the upper part of the canvas where I see that color happening in the scene. Next, I'll take my Viva paper towels and just give it a swish. I'm just softening what I did, kind of spreading it out. The wash has so many benefits, not just getting rid of the white, but also it will create a harmony that goes on in the painting that that you will actually feel and see as the paint goes on. It's something that's underneath everything and causes just a great underpainting look that creates that harmony. And to me, that does what I need it to do. And we'll start with our drawing. I'll use my brushes that I talked about earlier in the segment, the 279s by Rosemary. Master's Choice, I believe they call it. And it's just a great tool for getting the drawing going. Now, I'm also thinking about composition. If I'm out doing plein air, that job is a lot larger than it is here in a studio situation. But it also, I'm having to figure out where that composition is, where is the focal point, what's going on. And the house is definitely the focal point. The hollyhocks are blooming all around it, and that's really what stopped me in my tracks. So that is where I want to start. It's the main character of my painting. And I will first start by just getting important angles of the house put down, and it may just be a little dot that lets me know where I am, or a line. And you'll notice as I'm doing this, pressure is happening and then I'm lightening up. I enjoy drawing so much. It's one of my favorite things. And so I want to enjoy this part of the painting. And I do so by varying the lines, letting them be a little harsher or harder, and then lightening up a little bit. Don't ever be afraid also to just change your drawing when you know you need to, which may happen here. And I'm not going to completely stay with the building the whole time because it relates to the other things in the painting. So I will also get this tree in. You'll also see that I changed the position of the brush a lot. I'll use the tip of the brush, and then I'll use the side of the brush. And also the cane really does come in handy when I get to a point that I really need my hand to have something to rest on. It's great to hear from an instructor or somebody that's around. It's just paint. It can be wiped off. It can be changed. It's still wet. Also, I will use my brush. My image is right beside the camera. So I will use my brush to get an angle. And if you noticed from the photo to the painting, a few of those things aren't exactly right, but they're close enough. And if they're close enough, they tell the story. And if they're not exact to what you see, it may be more interesting. So I allow or give myself freedom to maybe not have the angle exactly right, but at least believable. This was an interesting home with two porches that mimicked each other on either side. And in the photo, you can see that they're almost exactly equal to each other. In my painting, I will choose to maybe make them a little bit different just to create some variety. And the angle where I was sitting helped that. me check myself on a few of these. Lines. And then often my finger will come into play. And I do have on my lotion invisible gloves or invisible care. Looking for the tip of that little building out front, which was so interesting to me. Sometimes just getting shapes painted in is an easier way to draw than some of the lines that you see. Those were rose bushes, kind of right beside this building. I guess one of my favorite things to paint is a window or an opening into a building. And these brushes will give a feathery feel, which almost creates the reflection in the window for you, not needing to go in and paint it with white or a reflective color. It happens by just the featheriness of the brush. And I love it when the windows are open or there's something going on in the scene that lets there be different placements of the mullions or the wood of the window. It just shows that there's life there and there's somebody staying there, and they have the window open. After looking a little bit harder at what I've drawn so far, I've decided I've got a few things I need to get in the right place. So I'm gonna really study what is going on here and like I said earlier, it's just paint. My mixture again is transparent red oxide and ultramarine blue. And sometimes I err on the side of having it a little bit darker or bluer, and sometimes a little bit more brown. And it depends on what I'm looking at in the scene, which one of those I choose. Looking through the porch here, I see some of the landscape. I'm going to use my paper towel here and get some of this dark off in this place right here, because that will come back to haunt me if I don't soften it now. And there are going to be times when I really think this is pretty ugly. There's always an ugly stage while I'm painting, and that I have to push through, and I have to be courageous enough to change or live with until I know that the paint is going to keep happening and it's going to be better. Those side windows are one of the easiest things in the world to paint if we just let ourselves be okay with one brush stroke that captures it. It's funny how we will labor over certain things that can be pretty easy to paint. I'm pretty passionate about getting into my painting the things that I see, even the telephone wires or the telephone pole. To me, it just kind of talks and shows where we live and what we have done to the land in a way, how and what we need in the world that we live in now, and that talks to me, and so it's definitely something that I will paint in. If it's too distracting, I won't, but most of the time I do. There's that window on the porch that seems to be pretty important to me. It's an entry in. You'll notice that my finger hits the canvas and kind of rides along with the brush stroke. It's, I don't know, I guess it's another way I steady my hand. I'm looking for the darks. I'm drawing, but I'm also looking for the darks, and knowing that if I get them in now, I'm going to be really happy with that toward the end of the painting, or as I'm laying color on, it just gives a great underpainting to where some of those bright, wonderful marks of color are going to show up a lot better if I have the darks in. Also, I'm going to try to leave the purity of actually the marks I'm making now. That will let them, it will keep things from getting muddy as I add white to my colors and to the painting. I'm trying to get the feel of the land. Now my supporting actor or actress is this little shed, and it's down here on the side. And anytime I come upon a scene and I've got more than one structure, that is that's something that I want to paint. It just brings interest. This structure may not be as important, but it really adds to the scene. It tells the story of the farm. And fortunately enough, it had this great little window with a flower box. See that opening there in the brush marks? Awesome. It just kind of gives life to that window. And the flowers will go in later. Just kind of giving them a backdrop or underneath color, shadow with my drawing. You know, having courage to change some things in the middle of your drawing is a good thing. I'm going to take a few minutes here to correct a few things that I see that aren't quite where I want them. This is a little too large. This porch roof. So the darks are in and that area, so the paint will take care of some of it. I just need to get some of these angles right. When I drove by this scene, I may have talked about it earlier, but there was, the owner was out on the front porch drinking her morning cup of coffee, and that definitely caught my eye, and she was sitting right here, and I won't, because it's really from a distance, I won't try to capture her, but at some point I will put some dots of color there that represent maybe some life going on. And so I want the darks in before I get to that point. There were steps leading down into the yard. Now this right here I'm not real happy with. Let's go to the Q-tips, which I dip in my mineral spirits. And then I just actually squeeze a little bit of that out. To help me carve out what I'm looking for. Sometimes I don't use the mineral spirits. It all depends on how much paint I want to take off. Just helps give some clarification. It's another way of getting even another color in on the underpainting. The transparent red oxide stains a little bit and actually works in a great way for me. Also, I'm thinking about everything needs to be grounded, not just floating up in the air. So some of these darker marks of my drawing help accomplish that. This ends up being a little bit too large, so I'm going to make that into the background. The landscape that's back there, that hillside really helps, that runs throughout the painting behind the house, really sets it in here, sets it in to where into the landscape. One thing I'm also trying to accomplish and think about is the connection between all of these things in the painting, to connect them to each other. I talked about it earlier. The word I use for it is peel. It's like if I could take one edge of the canvas and peel off all the darks, somehow they would be connected, and they would go to each side of the painting surface also. And they don't have to be real thick and harsh, but they can be very thin, but just something about the connection of the darks really gives me a feel that everything is harmonious with each other. This, right here, was a clothesline that connected the house to the little shed. And yes, that's what I see in the photo. And if anything is ever, which it may be in this case, lined up with each other from your viewpoint, to put it over to the side a little bit will make it just much more interesting in your composition. Actually, that line went, the clothesline went from porch to post to building. And I will go ahead and draw it in, even though I'm going to be doing a lot of painting in that area. It's just, I'm getting the lay of the land when I'm drawing, and I'm into my, this part of the process. And I'm actually thinking about stages of the painting that are going to happen later on, right now. Just the transparent red oxide, if I come over here to the side of my palette or to the side of the darker pile and just use it, I didn't wash my brush, but that color underneath a green will just make it sing. And even though this subject matter was in Wisconsin, it had a feel of where I'm from in Tennessee. And we have a lot of greens in Tennessee. Really not this time of year in the winter, but for spring, summer, and fall, lots of green. And so to live there, you've got to embrace it, and you've got to know how to paint it. And that was putting the transparent red oxide underneath was a great thing for me to get a hold of. Now, there were actually lawnmower streaks in the grass, which I thought gave great interest. And I'm going to go ahead and get a feel for those. Now I'm going to switch to a bristle brush and really get some darks in here. if I use this position of the brush and actually work down into the lighter part, the roof of this building, and push in, I get a wonderful edge there, not a real clean, straight edge. It may look that way, but it's got some interest. And can make a difference in your brush strokes.
Hey, would you like to win a beautiful painting worth almost $3,000? We've got a beautiful Joe McGurl plein air study that he's done of the sunset in Maine. It's gorgeous. If you want to have an opportunity to win it, go to paintinggiveaway.com. Just put in your email. That's all you've got to do, and you only need to enter once. We'll be giving away the prize at the end of May. Go to paintinggiveaway.com.
In this video, I will be teaching just how I go about a painting, how I stay organized, how I do my brush strokes, and also just how much I enjoy it. One thing that I would hope that everyone would know is it took a lot of people to get me to this place. I didn't arrive by watching or going to one workshop. It took a lot of people to teach me what I have learned. I will say that getting the lay of the land is kind of my way of saying, what am I painting, how to sketch it, to know where I'm going with the painting, to make drawing a real emphasis in my work. It has just been a blast, and I believe it can be that way for you too. Keep your mind open and just paint your heart out. I would say I am inspired by nature, by man-made things, an old building, an old structure, a clothesline that tells the story of things that I knew as a kid. Oh my goodness, will stop me in my tracks, and that's what I want to paint. I think the most exciting part of this video is just how I've used different materials to get where I want to get in my painting. My painting style I have called nostalgic impressionism. I think because my subject matter is pretty much nostalgic, and then to see how people can be so painterly. Painters can do it impressionistically, and I wanted a piece of that. I wanted to be able to do that, and that definitely has influenced my style. I hope that people's skills may be enhanced by the fact that a light bulb moment went off in them, that they gained something that they had not heard before, and that it really makes them a better painter. One idea is all I would hope for.
Well, that was Bold Brushwork with Kathie Odom, and you can learn more about it at lilyartvideo.com. What do you say we get to know Kathie now in an interview? Hi, welcome to Interviews with the Artists. I'm Eric Rhodes, publisher of Plein Air magazine. Today we have Kathie Odom, a fabulous artist you're going to love getting to know. Welcome, Kathie.
Oh, it's so good to be here.
Well, tell everybody where you live, where you're from.
Oh, I am from Tennessee.
I couldn't tell from your accent.
No. Grew up in West Tennessee in Jackson, went to the University of Tennessee and met my fella and stayed in East Tennessee. Actually, we have just bought a new home about 10 miles outside of the Great Smoky Mountains.
Oh, beautiful.
So I've moved to my office.
Your
in
office
many
now
ways.
is the Great Smoky Mountains.
It really will be.
So
yes.
you're really primarily a plein air painter?
Primarily, yes. Love the studio, trying to grow in that, but I feel like my best work is plein air.
You know, your work has such incredible energy. How do you get that sense of energy into your paintings?
I think it's pouring out because I had it bound up for so long.
What do you mean?
I just started this thing. I feel like I'm a baby at it. I was an art kid, never really picked up the paintbrush, did everything else, and 10 years ago went to my first workshop, and I have not stopped painting since.
Well, you know, I think that, first off, I want to talk about the idea of starting late. I don't know that there is ever a late.
No.
But
no.
To accomplish what you've accomplished in 10 years is remarkable.
Oh,
Congratulations.
thank you.
So what prompted you to take painting up?
A birthday present. My husband gave me a workshop. Probably 10 years earlier, I had mentioned one day I'm going to be an oil painter.
Really?
And he picked up on that and signed me up for a workshop for a pretty big birthday. It was my 50th birthday. And the first question I had was, I don't have to go by myself, do I? And he said, no, I'm going and I'm going to do outdoor cooking. So we had a ball at John C. Campbell Folk School. And it was the start. And the best gift I've ever been given.
Well, you know, I have a similar story. As my whole art career started because my wife bought me an art lesson.
Okay.
So we have that in common.
Yes. Yeah.
So what has that process been like for you? Because you developed, first off, you started what you say is late, but you know, it's a pretty normal time to start because a lot of people have their lives, their kids, et cetera, and then, you know, they jump into it once they have some of that out of the way. Was that the case with you?
Yes, absolutely. I don't regret the years before painting one bit. They led me to this place. At the time, my children had all moved out of the nest. I had unfortunately lost both parents in the same time frame. And I felt a little lost. In fact, I was saying to myself, I'm next. I mean, there's not much more for me to do. And then painting happened.
Well, you got to watch your mindset with that kind of thing. I normally would scold you, but since we're on camera, I won't do that.
I've gotten past that. And I also feel so much younger. Painting has given me some youth and life that I wouldn't take anything for.
So it's really given you, excuse the expression, a new lease on life. It's really giving you something to look forward to. You have accomplished a lot in 10 years' time. It's not too difficult for anybody who starts painting, especially plein air painting, to get to a point where they can be fairly happy and proficient with their work, but to get to the level where you go from being proficient to being, you know, you're teaching workshops and you're getting national recognition and you're winning awards, you know, that's pretty unusual in that short period of time. So for the person who might be watching this, what would you recommend the path be for them?
Number one, have courage to put yourself out there. I would say take workshops, buy videos, learn as much as you can, then be willing to put your work out there for people to see. That's how it started. Somebody liked a painting well enough to give it an award right at the beginning of my journey. And that propelled me into, well, I may be able to do this.
So what do you say to people who, we run into people all the time who are a little bit afraid to come to something like the Plein Air Convention because they don't want to put themselves out there. They're self-conscious about their work, and being in front of other people. How do you deal with those kinds of issues in your head?
Oh, just come. That's all I've got to say. Be there, learn, give yourself the opportunity to meet people that do this professionally. Even if it's just to sit and observe, what goes in will help the paintings that come out later.
There's a sense of osmosis that takes place. If you sit, first off, you're at a workshop, any workshop, anybody who's worth their salt to watch, just sitting and watching them paint for 5 days is going to impact your work, even if you're not working on it right then. If you're working on it right then it kind of cements it in your head.
Yes.
But if you're in an environment like, say, the Plein Air Convention or the FACE conference, and you're watching demos all day, every day from 20, 30, 40 different people over the course of a week, what happens to your painting after that, like in the year in between? How does that change it?
Well, tremendously, but I have learned just by coming to the conventions and doing workshops that if I gain one light bulb moment, one thing that will make my paintings that much better, I am so happy about that one thing. And you can be overwhelmed, but if you come away with just something that increases the look and makes your paintings look that much better, it is worth every bit, and you will gain more than just one thing.
I think that's really great advice.
Yeah.
I could remember when you said that, I could remember that one thing, and I was sitting in C.W. Mundy's session, and he told me one thing, told all of us one thing, and that has become a principle in every painting I've done ever since that.
Yes.
And it impacted the way my compositions look. So for the people who are watching this and want to learn painting from you, what's the one thing that you want to communicate to the people watching this?
I would say, there's so many.
Let's start with one.
Yeah. I would say letting the paint be fresh, giving it a chance, the color, laying it on softly and not digging into the darks below. I've been told that my paintings have a freshness about them, and it can happen.
Well,
and there's ways to do it.
The colors glow in your paintings. So can you translate what you just said and bring it down a notch so that we can all understand how to get there?
It's a commercial, but Rosemary brushes, 279s, Master's Choice, are a secret of mine, that it's no longer a secret, that I just love the way they put paint on a canvas. But
there has to be something more to your process. I mean, it's a tool, but
Yes.
as you know, I can buy the same clubs that Tiger Woods has and not hit the shot like he does. And so you've got a great tool, but what do you do with that tool that helps you preserve the color? Because I could use that same tool and still get mud.
Keeping my palette clean. I work on glass. I will scrape it regularly and keep certain colors that I really want to keep on the palette, but making clean spots to mix some that I want to really pop. I would have to say that drawing, actually painting my drawing onto the canvas and protecting it and doing it in a way that I can lay paint on top of that is just something that has happened has evolved in my painting, and I think really makes it be Kathie.
So you don't strike me as a blender. You
No.
strike me as a lay it down, leave it alone.
Alla prima, just that loving a brush stroke. And that happened pretty early on in my painting. Just, maybe it was the excitement of getting to paint, but I do love a brush stroke, yes.
Now, to get the kind of texture that you get, are you using a medium? Are you going straight out of the tube?
I don't know that the medium has an effect on the texture, but the 279 brush does. And a light touch, letting it be feathery, not strong and hard on the canvas.
So some people, I was at a workshop with David LaFell recently, and he told me to hold the brush at the very end. Some people hold it right up at the front like a pencil. What do you do?
I will hold it every way you can. I will pull, push, go sideways, twirl, let that brush dance.
Well, that makes a difference.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about a couple other core principles, because you're doing workshops, people come into your workshops, everybody's got a lot of information from a lot of different people. What are the things that you want them to leave there with? Brushwork is obviously one of them. What else?
I want them to leave knowing their palette. I want them to stick with some paints for a while.
How long?
I have stuck with mine for 10 years.
Really? So
I have added a few along the way when I just had to from a workshop, but I have got the same palette from 10 years ago.
and you recommend a certain way to lay it out?
Yes, and I don't know that it matters how cool or warm, or for me, that is not the case. All of my yellows are together. It's knowing where they are and putting them in the same place for 10 years. I know where they are.
Right, so it's kind of like playing a piano with your eyes closed.
Yes.
The idea that you just instinctively know you're going to reach over and hit that
Yes.
particular color.
Yes. So actually painting becomes a dance in me. It's a reaction. I'm not having to think, and I'm not having to fill my palette anymore because I put ample paint out.
Yeah.
It's if you don't embrace the setup and actually the cleanup as much as you do the painting, I think that that's going to bring a little chaos. So I embrace every stage of all of that.
So when you're going out plein air painting and you're walking around and you're looking for your scene, and the scene strikes you, you set up your easel, what's the first thing you do?
I set up my easel, I make sure everything's in place, and I sketch.
You do it.
I sketch every time.
You sketch on a pad?
I have a sketchbook. In fact, I have a particular one I really like. It's actually a square, and I don't paint a lot of square paintings, but it allows me to even create the size of the canvas on my paper, and that's part of the process, choosing what canvas you're going to use. So from the very beginning, the scene is telling me what I need to use and what I need to paint on.
And so you make a sketch, a thumbnail sketch, I assume, or is it
Oh,
big?
no,
Big? It's
no,
a big sketch.
I was a drawing major and absolutely love drawing. Did not take one painting class in the University of Tennessee, but did take a lot of drawing. And I love the process of drawing. I don't make a perfect one. I don't make a piece of art. But that sketch and that drawing is just as important to me, and I really want it to be lovely, because I love that medium.
So how much time, if you're out in the field, how much time will you spend on that drawing?
Probably 5 minutes, 10. I want to do it fast because I do want to get to painting because I've fallen for that. But it depends. A lot of it depends on how much is out there, but I adore that process. And I have found it gives me the lay of the land. Not that I'm painting land every time, but I'm knowing where everything is. I know what I'm looking at. I've experienced it through the drawing. So when painting comes around, I know my subject a lot better.
Yeah, when there's that temptation for our eyes to wander and pull something else in, you know, you're going along and you're painting, all of a sudden you glance over and you see a tree and you're going to say, I'm going to start putting that tree in, and next thing you know, you get a jumbled mess.
Yeah.
So
Don't chase the light, and keep it as simple as possible. Keep your shape strong.
So let's talk about plein air painting. There's a movement. Obviously, Jean Stern from the Irvine Museum says it's the largest movement in the history of the world, in the art world. In terms of why you do plein air painting versus why not just take photos and do it in the studio?
Oh my goodness, I can't say enough about that. The vibration that happens in nature, the way light hits, the little pops of color you see because you're there, you're outside. A photograph doesn't do it justice. And I'll see little nuances that literally the camera will not pick up, but I can put it in a painting because I've experienced it. I think it has greatly helped my studio work because I know of those things that happen and I get to play around with it.
Isn't it kind of a hassle, though, to have to go outdoors to paint?
Oh, never. Never. And I hear that and can't imagine anybody saying it. It's where two of my loves come together, being outside, being surrounded by beauty, and then to be able to capture part of it in paint.
Now, do you go out every day? How often do you go out?
No. I have a life besides painting.
You do?
And I do.
No, you're obviously not dedicated enough yet.
No, I would say I work really hard at it, but I have 5 grandchildren and one on the way.
Wow.
That is going to be born like in 2 days.
Wow.
So I have a life that I love. I've got friends and a community of people that I'm a part of, but this has taken a lot of great time, and I'm so glad that I get to do it.
So your best advice to somebody who wants to become a plein air painter, let's assume they've never painted anything before. Let's assume they've never done any plein air painting. What's the process that you would advise them to go through in order to kind of properly learn this and to get as proficient as possible, as fast as possible?
Do not give up. Do not stop after the first or second go at it. They can be disastrous. They can be overwhelming. It could be windy. Go back out there. Do it multiple times. If anything, just go with a friend and enjoy the time with a friend, but don't quit because it can be hard. But then you kind of learn to choose your days that you go out there and you avoid certain...
You're a fair weather painter?
No, I've had my feet in the snow, and I have been out there in the wind where I'm gripping the canvas and I'm painting at the same time, holding on for dear life, because that canvas can become a sail. And, it is worth every minute of it. And the more you do, the more confident you are in painting and putting the paint on canvas. You can get, none of that matters as much as it does those first few times. The wind, the rain, they've got all kinds of things now to keep you dry. I mean, and I own 3 shade buddies.
Umbrellas.
The umbrellas that go in the ground. And I can position those things and paint in the pouring down rain. And there's some great effects to those paintings.
Well, I once studied under a photographer who was a protege of Ansel Adams, and he said the best photographs come from the hardest work, come from the worst weather, and the more you're willing to, the further you're willing to hike, the earlier you're willing to get up in the morning, the more you're willing to stand in the rain, the better you're going to get. And the same thing seems to be true for paintings. Because
Well, it keeps you working, and it makes you be more painterly. And you get that paint on sooner because you'd like to be more comfortable. But really great things happen when you are pushed a little bit.
you get, and you're painting with instinct. The one thing that
Get out of your head.
Yeah, because you're overthinking everything if you have plenty of time. That's why plein air is so wonderful, because the light's constantly changing, and of course weather conditions. But you're being more instinctive rather than noodling things. In the studio, you can just work on that same passage forever.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So if you were advising somebody new, would you say, look, learn the basics indoors, like learn how to mix colors and learn how to apply paint, or would you just say, go for it, get outdoors and go for it?
I can't help but say go for it. What could be better than being in the Smoky Mountains in Cades Cove with my palette and mixing beautiful color outside looking at it? Nothing could be better than that.
Well, you have really gone for it. You've become a fabulous painter. And the other thing is that you've become successful as a painter in terms of selling your work. How did you do that?
Courage, bravery, and letting a husband that really loves me and cares about what I am doing take charge of that part. And I would say I always have veto over anything, but to let Buddy use his gifts, and really he's got the gift of sales, he's got the gift of marketing, and he is crazy about what I'm doing right now. And he has fallen for art. And all of that combination of the both of us has definitely played a big part in this.
So he's kind of like your manager.
Absolutely, yes. And it's a tough job.
I don't think I'd want to manage you.
We've had a lot of fun, and we sit at night with him with the computer in his lap and me dreaming and about where I want to go next to paint, and he's over there buying a plane ticket before I can get the words out of my mouth.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things I've realized about you, and probably is the secret to your success, is just go for it. Everything that you've outlined here, you've just jumped in and said, I'm going for it. I'm going to do it. You haven't allowed your thinking to get in the way of your progress.
Right. Absolutely. I always thought that my life would be in the art world. And it's always been in a creative world, but not so much art and what I would call fine art. And the minute the door opened and I was shoved in a lovely way, being put into the world, I want it. I want to be in the game, and I want to be the best that I can be at it.
So which is better, the art, the act of painting, or the act of watching someone pick up your painting and buy it and get excited about it?
Oh, wow. Painting has to come first, because if the person buying doesn't see that I love what I do through my painting, that isn't going to happen. So I want to keep the love of what I do first. And then if they buy it, I'm just, okay, where's the next one? Let's do another one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So any final thoughts or advice for the people watching this who are interested in either getting started or getting to the next level?
Subscribe to Plein magazine. Just dive in, read about it, look at paintings, go to museums, get outside, go to a park bench, paint with your eyes. Leave the paints at home. Just paint with your eyes. Learn to see. I think a lot of us try to paint and we don't know how to see.
How do you learn to see?
Oh, by observing, by seeing that a tree limb doesn't always go up, that some of them are broken and they go down toward the ground. I mean, there are just things out there that you can see that is right there for you. But somehow we're in our head a little too much, thinking what it should look like.
So what you mean by that is the old lollipop tree shape, or all pine trees look like this.
Yes.
And
they don't.
They don't.
They don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been an absolute pleasure. It's been fun getting to know you. You've been staying at our place at the world famous artist cabin, and we've loved having you here. And
thank you.
It's been really a fabulous experience getting to know you.
Thank you. It has been for me. All of this crew is awesome.
This has been Interviews with the Artists with Kathie Odom. I'm Eric Rhodes. Thanks for watching. That was Kathie Odom, and the video is called Bold Brushwork. You can learn more about it at lilyartvideo.com. Thanks for watching today.
In this video, I will be teaching just how I go about a painting, how I stay organized, how I do my brush strokes, and also just how much I enjoy it. One thing that I would hope that everyone would know is it took a lot of people to get me to this place. I didn't arrive by watching or going to one workshop. It took a lot of people to teach me what I have learned. I will say that getting the lay of the land is kind of my way of saying, what am I painting, how to sketch it, to know where I'm going with the painting, to make drawing a real emphasis in my work. It has just been a blast, and I believe it can be that way for you too. Keep your mind open and just paint your heart out. I would say I am inspired by nature, by man-made things, an old building, an old structure, a clothesline that tells the story of things that I knew as a kid. Oh my goodness, will stop me in my tracks, and that's what I want to paint. I think the most exciting part of this video is just how I've used different materials to get where I want to get in my painting. My painting style I have called nostalgic impressionism. I think because my subject matter is pretty much nostalgic, and then to see how people can be so painterly. Painters can do it impressionistically, and I wanted a piece of that. I wanted to be able to do that, and that definitely has influenced my style. I hope that people's skills may be enhanced by the fact that a light bulb moment went off in them, that they gained something that they had not heard before, and that it really makes them a better painter. One idea is all I would hope for.